My mom pressured me to satisfy my sister's crazy demands, but I refused to let them ruin my career. So, I exposed her lies in front of 180 guests. My sister Jessica destroyed my Juilliard audition when I was 16. She was 20 years old and already a family favorite. The night before my audition, she informed our parents that I had been sneaking out to parties. Complete falsehood. Mom grounded me, confiscated my vehicle keys, and told me I could get the bus to the audition in the morning. Except she neglected to leave the bus money. I arrived at the audition site 1 hour and 45 minutes late, having walked the 7 kilometers. They would not let me perform. That scholarship was my only chance at music school. Mom blamed me for being reckless. Jessica merely shrugged, saying it may be a hint that I should pursue a more realistic job. I ended up attending community college and working 3 jobs to pay for vocal training on the side. But here's the thing about beginning from the bottom. You learn how to battle for every chance. I spent 6 years grinding. Singing at weddings for $150, recording demos in dubious studios, and teaching kids music at the YMCA. Every week I upload covers on YouTube. Nothing fancy, just myself and a keyboard in my flat. One of the covers went viral. 3.5 million views in 1 month. A talent scout reached out. Suddenly I'm singing backup for real touring musicians. Subsequently I do my own modest venues and subsequently larger ones. Last year I signed with an actual label. My debut record is released next month. The advance totaled $350,000. I purchased a home. Meanwhile Jessica became just what our parents desired. Dental degree, suburban home, 2 children, and a spouse who runs a bank. She received $75,000 from our parents for her wedding. They handed me a $60 gift card. I didn't complain. Instead, I continued to advance in my job. I haven't been to a family gathering in 3 years. Jessica never phoned to congratulate me on my record contract. Neither did Mom. Then 2 months ago, I underwent vocal cord surgery. Polyps resulting from years of usage. The doctor advised me to refrain from singing for at least 10 weeks, or risk permanently damaging my voice. I'm 8 weeks into my rehabilitation. Cannot even hum without discomfort. I announced it publicly so that my followers would understand why I'm not performing. I received thousands of sympathetic responses, not a member of the family. Then last week, Jessica called. This is the first time I've heard from her in literally 18 months. Does not inquire about my operation. Doesn't inquire about my record. She's pursuing an MBA, and the graduation celebration is coming month. She asks me to sing a certain song. She wants me to sing her favorite song, which went viral, in front of the entire class. It would mean a lot to have my renowned sister perform. She recalls. I reminded her that I had just had surgery. Can't sing for at least another month. She chuckled. Come on, 1 song will not hurt. You always sing for strangers, but never for your own sister. I said that I am physically unable to sing right now. Doctor's orders. She said I was being selfish and envious of her accomplishments. Mom called an hour later. Your sister worked really hard for this degree, the least you can do is help her. I informed her about the procedure again. She suggested I was exaggerating, and that I could easily handle 1 song if I really wanted to. Jessica had already informed her pals that I would be performing, that my tough behavior was humiliating to the family. The calls have not ceased. Every day, Mom, Jessica, and Jessica's husband James, merely lip sync if necessary. Take some throat lozenges. Stop penalizing Jessica for her achievements. That entitlement was ridiculous. They asked me to jeopardize my entire career, voice and livelihood for Jessica's party. The same sister who ruined my chances at music school. Yesterday, I had had enough. I phoned my friend Alex, who is also my manager. I told him I wanted him to accompany me to handle some family business. He is aware of my previous interactions with them. Didn't even hesitate. We drove for 5.5 hours to Jessica's city. The graduation party occurred today. A very posh country club. Probably costs $18,000. We stepped in right as Jessica was delivering a statement about her journey and successes. She noticed me and her face brightened up. Actually informed everyone that her sister, a music artist, was arrived to play. The whole audience turned to stare at me. 180 individuals, including her classmates, professors, husbands, and co-workers. Mom was grinning, as if she'd planned the entire affair. I stepped directly to the microphone. Jessica handed it to me while immediately opening up the background track on her phone. Thank you, Jessica, I replied, my voice resonating over the speakers. But I won't be singing for your events today or ever. See, when someone sabotages your Juilliard audition at 16, pretends to have you grounded the night before, and costs you your only opportunity at music school, you learn not to give up your profession for others. Congratulations on your MBA, she said, her face devoid of color. Especially when they demand you sing 8 weeks after vocal surgery, which could end your career if you further damage it. Mom approached me and smacked me hard. The security officer intervened before Mom could swing again. Alex grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the microphone. The entire country club became quiet. 180 people are gazing at us. Jessica's face went from white to crimson red. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I could hear her MBA classmates talking to one another. One of them had their phone up and recording. Ethan maintained his hand on my shoulder and escorted me to the exit. My legs shook, but I continued going. As we passed, the crowd separated. Someone gave a gasp. A woman placed her palm over her lips. Jessica's husband, James, stood still at the bar, his glass halfway to his lips. Mom was hollering something behind us, but Ethan refused to let me stop. We pushed through the double doors and entered the lobby. The country club manager stood there, puzzled. Ethan did not slow down. He took me straight through the front entrance and into the parking lot. The frigid air touched my face, and my hands began to shake. Really shaky. It seemed like I had no control over them. Ethan unlocks his car and opens the passenger door. When I got in, my entire body began to tremble. He shut the door and dashed around to the driver's side. My phone vibrated in my handbag. The humming continued unabated. Ethan leaned over and grabbed my handbag. He took out my phone and switched it off. The screen became dark. He gave me a water bottle from the cup holder. I attempted to open it, but my hands were too shaky. He returned it and opened it for me. I sipped water. Mom smacked me on the face and it stung. The skin felt hot and tight. Ethan started his car and drove out of the parking area. Looking back, I saw the country club building. People were exiting the front doors. Jessica stood there, arms folded. Mom stood next to her, pointing to Ethan's car. We drove into the main road and they vanished from sight. Ethan drove for 4.5 hours before we exchanged any words. I glanced out the window, watching the highway signs pass past. Trees, buildings, and gasoline stations. My face still ached. Despite the fact that I had not attempted to speak or sing, my throat felt constricted. Ethan kept looking over at me every few minutes to make sure I was okay. The sun started to set, and the sky turned orange and pink. I pondered about what I had just done. Standing in front of all those people, telling them what Jessica and Mom did. Years of being quiet and accepting it. And now everyone knows. Jessica's classmates knew. Her instructors knew. Friends at her husband's workplace were aware. After all this time, I finally spoke my truth. But my face stung, and I could already envision the calls, messages, voicemails, Mom yelling at me, and Jessica calling me terrible names. Dad would probably not call at all, as he always does. Ethan leaned across, gripped my hand briefly, and then returned his hand to the wheel. The roadway stretched out ahead of us. We still had 4.5 hours to go till we arrived home. We stopped at a rest station halfway home. Ethan needed petrol, and I wanted to use the restroom. My legs felt tight from sitting. I entered the rest stop building. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The bathroom was vacant. I walked inside a stall, then emerged to wash my hands. That was when I noticed my reflection in the mirror. My left cheek was covered with a crimson mark. Bright crimson, as if someone had painted it there. The margins began to turn purple, like a bruise. I touched it softly and winced. It stung harder than I expected. The door opened, and an older woman entered. She looked at me and her gaze went right to my cheek. Her demeanor shifted, indicating concern and worry. I glanced aside and wiped my hands. Ethan was waiting outside the restroom. He observed my expression and his jaw clenched. He took out his phone and held it up. I didn't understand at first, so he pointed to my cheek. He wanted to take pictures, documents, and evidence. I nodded. He shot 3 photographs from various perspectives. The flash caused me to blink. He placed his phone aside without explaining why he needed the images. We both knew, just in case. We got back in our car and drove the rest of the way home. Ethan drove into my driveway around midnight. The home was dark. I left in such a haste yesterday that I failed to turn on any lights. Ethan shut off the engine but didn't move to exit. He gazed at me in the faint light of the street lamp. He told me he was staying in the guest room. Didn't ask. Just told me. I was thankful. The energy from the party was wearing off and I felt lethargic and heavy, like if my body weighted twice as much as usual. We went inside, and I showed Ethan where the guest room was. The bed was already made up with fresh linens from his previous visit. He said goodnight and closed the door. I walked to my room and sat on the side of the bed. I was still wearing the same outfit I had worn to the party. My phone was still turned off in my handbag. I did not switch it back on. I didn't want to view the texts yet. My cheeks throbbed. I touched it again, and agony raced through my jaw. I stood up and peered at my bathroom mirror. The bruising appeared worse now. Darker purple is creeping over my cheekbones. I took off my dress and changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. I washed my face gently around the bruising. I brushed my teeth. Went to bed. But I could not sleep. Just looked at the ceiling, reflecting on what I'd done. What happens next? What this meant for my family, my work, and everything. I awoke to sunshine shining through my bedroom window. My phone was still off. I switched it on and waited for it to start up. The screen lighted up and alerts began to flow in. Missed calls, text messages, and voicemail. The numbers continued increasing. 42 missed calls. Most of the numbers I didn't recognize. Others came from Jessica. Others from Mom. And others from James. I opened my texts. Jessica had sent me a lengthy message at 2 a.m. She called me every awful thing she could think of, calling me envious, bitter, and pitiful, claiming I wrecked her wonderful day because I couldn't bear watching her succeed, that I was a loser who blamed everyone else for my problems, and that I should be ashamed of myself. I erased it before completing. Mom left a voicemail. I played it via the speaker. Her tone was chilly and aggressive. Said I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. That I embarrassed them in the presence of significant people. Jessica worked hard for her MBA, and I couldn't even be supportive for a single day, that she was embarrassed to call me her daughter. The voicemail has finished. I sat there, holding my phone. My cheek still aches. The bruising probably seemed worse today. I got up and walked into the kitchen. Ethan was already preparing breakfast. Eggs with toast. Coffee is brewing in the pot. He glanced up as I walked in and asked how I slept. I told him, "Not great." He nodded as if he anticipated it. He poured me a cup of coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, eating. I showed him some of the communications, including Jessica's SMS and Mom's voicemail. He read them attentively. His face hardened when he finished. He stated, "We should document everything, save all the messages, keep photos of my bruise." The slap occurred in front of 180 witnesses. We had documentation if things grew worse or if they did something legally. I wasn't sure I wanted to go that road. Taking legal action against my own mother seemed awful, despite everything. But Alex suggested we should be ready just in case. Keep everything recorded and organized. I agreed. We spent the following hour screenshotting communications and organizing data, putting together a calendar of events, and writing down what happened at the party while it was still fresh in my mind. Ethan was thorough and professional. This explains why he was such an effective boss. My phone rang at 9 a.m., unknown number. I nearly didn't respond, but Ethan nodded at me. I heard a professional-sounding female voice. She introduced herself as Sophie, my publicist. I had forgotten that the label appointed me a publicist last month. We had just chatted once. She inquired whether I had noticed what was going on online. I said no. She informed me that a video of the encounter was circulating. Someone at the party recorded the entire affair. I'm at the microphone, telling everyone what Jessica did. Mom slapped me, and Alex pulled me away. The video was released last night and has already received thousands of views and thousands of shares. People were commenting and discussing it. Sophie said she was coming over to discuss damage management. They asked for my address. I handed it to her. She said she will be there in 2 hours. The call has ended. Ethan and I stared at each other. A video. Of course, someone recorded it. Everyone has their phones out at parties now, documenting everything. I felt nauseous. Not because I regretted what I had spoken, but because it was now permanent. There will be no returns. There is no use in pretending it never happened. Sophie arrived precisely 2 hours later. She was younger than I imagined, maybe 30. Dressed professionally with a blazer and excellent pants. She had a laptop bag over her shoulder. Ethan welcomed her in, and we sat in my living room. She opened her laptop, pulled up the video, and asked if I wanted to see it. I said yes. She turned the screen toward me and hit the play button. There I was, coming up to the microphone. Jessica handed it to me with a wide smile. Then my voice came through the speakers, informing everyone about the Juilliard audition, the sabotage, the operation, and the danger I was taking with my career. The camera shook slightly but got everything. Jessica's cheeks turned pale. Mom is walking toward me. A smack. The boom resonated across my peaceful living room. Alex is tugging me back. The audience reacts. Gasps and whispers. The video ended. Sophie shut the laptop. She looked at me and remarked, "This might actually help my career instead of hurting it." I gazed at her. She said that people have responded with enormous support. The comments criticized Jessica and Mom's actions, praised me for standing up to family pressure, and mentioned how brave and genuine I was. The video has reached 500,000 views. Major music blogs picked up the story and wrote stories. Sophie brought up her phone and showed me some headlines. She advised us to seize this opportunity and issue an open declaration regarding my family condition and voice rehabilitation. Instead of hiding or downplaying this, make it a part of my artist story. I sat with Sophie and Ethan at my kitchen table. Laptop is open between us. Sophie opened a blank document and asked me to tell her everything I wanted others to know. I began with the Juilliard audition. How Jessica lied to keep me grounded. Mom stole my vehicle keys and left me without transit money. Walking 7 kilometers in the cold. I'm missing out on my only opportunity to attend music school. Sophie typed as we chatted. Then I informed her about the operation, the polyps, and the doctor's orders not to sing for 10 weeks. How come I'm just 8 weeks into recovery? How singing now may forever destroy my voice. How Jessica phoned after 18 months of quiet, asking that I perform. How the entire family put pressure on me for days. Sophie continued typing. Ethan provided details that I had forgotten. The everyday telephone calls. James's proposal for lip sync. Mom said I was exaggerating. Sophie read the statement to us after I finished talking. It was wonderful. Straight, and honest. No drama, just the facts. She asked if I wanted to add anything. I said no. She shared it on my social media networks, all of them. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We sat there and watched the screen update. The first like arrived in seconds, followed by 10 more, and finally 50. Comments started pouring in. People expressed their support for me. Other musicians shared their personal familial stories. Fans stated that they understood why I couldn't perform. Within 20 minutes, we received 4,500 likes. 30 minutes, 12,000. An hour later, there are 48,000 likes and counting. The remarks kept pouring. There are many of them. Artists I liked had shared my post. Music bloggers picked it up. Sophie grinned, saying everything was going as planned. My phone began ringing. Unknown numerals. Sophie instructed me not to respond. She would manage all media queries. Ethan brewed coffee while we watched the figures rise. Then my email arrived. Sophie opened it on her laptop. Augustine Parks, a journalist, wanted to interview me. Sophie understood his efforts. He wrote for a prominent music magazine. Long profiles of artists, thorough dives into their professions and personal tales. No gossip, just true journalism. She picked up some of his previous pieces. They were terrific, insightful compositions that helped you understand the artist better. Sophie stated, "This could be huge for my album launch. Turn my personal story into part of my artist brand. Show people the journey from sabotaged audition to record deal." She asked whether I was okay with it. I said, yes. She responded to Augustine right there. Schedule a phone interview for 2 days later. Ethan refilled our coffee mugs. The phone rang again. This time, I recognized the number. Dad. I gazed at the screen. Sophie nodded at me. I responded. Dad's voice sounded different than I recalled. Quieter. He stated he noticed my post and read it all. He wanted me to know that he was sorry for everything, for not sticking up for me over the years. I didn't say anything, only listened. He informed me he was always aware that Jessica lied about me sneaking away before the Juilliard audition. He knew I wasn't at parties, that I was at home studying and practicing, but he didn't want to cause family discord by revealing this. He didn't want to upset Mom or make Jessica look terrible, so he remained mute. Allow me to accept the responsibility. Allow me to forfeit my scholarship opportunity. My throat felt tight, not from the procedure, but from rage. I informed Dad that his quiet encouraged Jessica's actions, which affected me as much as Mom's active partiality. That seeing him remain silent all those years made me feel invisible, as if I didn't matter enough to protect. Dad became silent on the other end. He then asked if we could meet for coffee. Just the two of us to properly discuss things. I was startled. Dad never requested to meet one-on-one and never attempted to have genuine interactions. I answered, "Maybe I'd think about it." He said he understood and asked me to call him when I was ready. The call has ended. Ethan gripped my shoulder. Sophie closed her laptop and promised to get back to me regarding the Augustine interview. She departed at midday. Alex stayed. We ordered dinner and watched television without actually watching it. My thoughts continued swirling. I interviewed Augustine over the phone 2 days later. It lasted 2 hours. He inquired about everything. Growing up with Jessica, the Juilliard audition, community college and 3 jobs, years of hard work, YouTube covers, the viral video, being signed, the surgery, and the graduation party confrontation. I told him things I'd never said publicly. Details of those early years, including how broke I was, how many times I almost quit, and how important music was to me. Augustine listened intently, offered appropriate follow-up questions, and made me feel heard. When we concluded, he indicated the story will be published in 2.5 weeks, exactly before my record came out. Perfect time. That day, my phone rang. Dr. Campbell's office is scheduling my 10-week checkup. The receptionist told me the date and time. I scribbled it down and hung up. Then I realized how tight my throat felt. Painful in a manner it had never been before. Not from chatting on the phone, but rather from continual strain. I had been unintentionally clenching my jaw and tightening my neck muscles. The stress of everything was manifesting physically. I softly stroked my throat. It stung. I called Ethan to tell him. He advised me to bring it up during the checkup to ensure that it would not interfere with my healing. The appointment arrived. Dr. Campbell performed his normal check, looked at my vocal cords with the scope, and stated the healing was going well, with no issues. But then he massaged my neck and shoulders, asked me to swallow, and watched my throat move. He stated that I was carrying a lot of strain and physical stress, which may hinder my recovery or develop other issues. He jotted down the name and phone number of Finn, a vocal therapist who specialized in assisting singers with post-operative recovery and performance anxiety. Finn, according to Dr. Campbell, might teach me stress reduction strategies. I took the paper, called Finn's office from the parking lot, and scheduled an appointment for the following day. Finn was younger than I imagined, possibly in his early 30s, and with a calm voice and an easy grin. His workspace was tiny and pleasant, with comfy seats and gentle lighting. He asked me to sit and explain what was going on. I described the operation, the family conflict, the viral video, the frequent phone calls and texts, and how my throat felt tight and uncomfortable even as the voice cords healed. Finn nodded as if he had heard it before. He said, "Emotional stress manifests as physical tension in the throat and neck, especially for singers. Our voices are tied to our emotions. When we're stressed or upset, we unconsciously tighten those muscles. It's protective, but it can interfere with healing." He had me stand up, put one hand on my stomach and one on my chest, and teach me breathing exercises, deep breaths from the diaphragm, and slow exhales. We did it for 10 minutes. Then he showed me some modest voice warm-ups. Nothing to strain my mending chords, just humming at low level, softly moving between notes, relieving tension piece by bit. For the first time in days, my throat began to feel less tight and sore. The pressure lessened. Finn booked me for twice-weekly appointments. We agreed to address both the physical strain and the mental stress that was causing it. I left feeling lighter. I got home and discovered a fresh voicemail. James is Jessica's spouse. His voice was harsh and loud. He said that I wrecked Jessica's celebration, made her seem awful in front of her co-workers, that she was saddened and embarrassed, and that I was a self-centered attention-seeking who couldn't give her a great day. The voicemail went on for 2 minutes, with each syllable dripping with rage. I played it for Ethan when he arrived that evening. His jaw tightened, and his protective instincts kicked in strong. He wanted to call James back, confront him, and defend myself. I put my hand on his arm and ordered him to let go. Engaging would just make matters worse. Give them more ammo, more reasons to play the victim. Ethan disliked it, but he consented. I deleted James's phone number so I wouldn't feel tempted to respond. The next day my phone became inundated with alerts. The video had 1.8 million views overnight. My social media feed was filled with messages from strangers, reporters, journalists, and television producers, all eager to discuss what transpired at the party. Ethan arrived early in the morning with coffee and his laptop. He showed me the statistics. The video appeared everywhere. It was covered by entertainment blogs, music websites, and even mainstream news outlets. People were sharing it with remarks about poisonous families and sticking up for oneself. The response was astounding. Sophie called at 8 a.m. sharp. Her voice was enthusiastic but controlled. She had a list. The morning programs wanted me. Podcasters were looking for interviews. Entertainment programs were reaching out. She stated, "We needed to be smart about this. Pick the right platform. Tell my story the right way." We spent 2 hours on the phone discussing choices. Some areas simply desired drama. They would alter my statements and make them fantastic. Others appeared more interested in the genuine narrative, my trip and how I arrived here. Sophie referred to a journalist called Augustine Parks. He wrote for a prominent music magazine, doing lengthy profiles on musicians, true in-depth pieces about their lives and careers, not gossip or sensationalism, but actual tales. She stated he had called out especially to do a profile on me. I sought him up and read many of his pieces. They were good. He allowed individuals to express their tales without seeming phony or theatrical. He asked serious questions and received real responses. I instructed Sophie to set it up. Augustine contacted me in the afternoon. His voice was calm and professional. He outlined everything he planned to achieve in detail, including my history, the Juilliard tale, and how I built my profession from the bottom up. The surgery, the family situation, and everything. He stated he wanted 2 hours on the phone, maybe longer if necessary, with just me talking and him listening and asking questions. I agreed. We booked it for the next day. Augustine phoned, and I was scared, but he made it simple. We started with easy inquiries. Where I grew up and when I first started singing. He did not rush. Let's chat. Really listened. I told him about being 17, Jessica lying to keep me grounded, trekking 7 miles to the audition and arriving late, Mom blaming me, and Jessica proposing I pursue another career. He inquired how that felt. I told him the truth. It ruined me. The scholarship was everything. My only route out, my one opportunity at the life I want. When it vanished, I felt as if my future went with it. But then, I became enraged and resolved to prove them all incorrect. He inquired about community college, the 3 jobs, the singing lessons I had bought for myself, and the YouTube covers. I told him about posting movies every week for years, how most only had 100 views, and how I continued going since there was nothing else I could do. Then one video touched me differently. 3.5 million views in 1 month. Everything changed once that scout reached out. Augustine was curious about the years between grinding, singing at weddings for $150, recording in shady studios, and teaching children at the YMCA. I detailed everything. The tiredness, the uncertainty, the moments when I almost gave up, but also the minor victories. The first time someone recognized me from YouTube, and the first paid work that felt authentic. The first time I sung my own song rather than a cover. We discussed the record agreement, the album, and the operation. He asked specific questions regarding the polyps, the recuperation process, and what it meant to be unable to sing for 10 weeks. I described how terrifying that was, and how my voice represents my job, my life, and all I've worked for. If the operation failed or I injured my cords during the recuperation process, it may all be over. Then he inquired about Jessica's call, and her demand that I perform. I talked him through every discussion, guilt trip, manipulation, Mom telling me I was exaggerating, James urging me to take throat lozenges, and the blatant disregard for my health and work. Augustine questioned why I went to the party. I told him I was done staying silent, letting them treat me as if I didn't matter, and pretending their conduct was okay. He asked whether I regretted it. I said, no, not even a little bit. The interview lasted about 2.5 hours. When we ended, I felt fatigued but relieved, as if I had finally given the entire tale to someone who cared about getting it right. A few days later, Dad texted me and asked if I wanted to meet him for coffee, just the 2 of us. I gazed at the writing for a long time. I wasn't sure I wanted to see him. I wasn't sure what he could say that would matter. But I agreed. We chose a coffee shop that was midway between our cities and on neutral ground. When I got in, Dad was already seated at a corner table. He appeared older than I recalled, more exhausted, with gray hair and creases around his eyes. He stood up when he spotted me and offered me an uncomfortable half-embrace. We sat down, got coffee, and didn't talk for a minute before Dad began, saying he was sorry, that he should have spoken up for me years ago, that he took the easy way out by agreeing with Mom, allowing her to favor Jessica, and being silent when he knew things weren't fair. I just listened and didn't interrupt. He admitted that viewing the video made him feel terrible. Witnessing me finally speak out, witnessing Mom smack me, and understanding how horribly they had failed me. He confessed he was always aware Jessica lied about my sneaking out before Juilliard. He knew I wasn't partying, that I was at home studying and practicing. But he didn't say anything since it would have sparked a conflict with Mom. Would have made Jessica upset. So he allowed me to take the fall. Let me lose that audition. Let my entire future alter because speaking up was too difficult. He then stated something that startled me. He had been helping me pay for my vocal lessons. Years ago, while I was attending community college and doing 3 jobs, I used to receive checks in the mail from someone I assumed was a distant aunt. It turns out it was Dad. He had been sending me money for tuition without informing my mother, secretly encouraging my music while remaining mute in public. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me felt thankful. He had assisted me when I was in terrible need. However, another part was enraged. Why hide it? Why not speak up? For me openly. Why help in private when Mom and Jessica treat me like garbage in public? We spoke for 2.5 hours. Dad stated that Mom always preferred Jessica because she did things the conventional way. College, dental school, marriage, children, the life Mom envisioned for both of us. Mom perceived my decision to pursue music as a rejection, as evidence of my difficulty and impracticality. Dad stated that wasn't fair or right. But this is how Mom viewed it. He went along with it since resisting Mom was hard. I inquired why he was telling me this now. He stated he couldn't keep quiet any longer. Couldn't watch me suffer while pretending everything was okay. He inquired whether there was any possibility to repair our connection. I told him the truth. I appreciated the apologies and knowing about the voice lesson money. But that one chat didn't reverse years of his allowing Mom and Jessica to harm me. That if he truly wanted to make things right, he ought to stand up to them rather than simply apologize to me in private. He pledged to try. He said he would talk to Mom and tell her how wrong she had been. I wasn't certain I believed him. I wasn't sure if he would truly follow through. But I thanked him for meeting me and being honest. We drank our coffee and embraced farewell. I drove home feeling uncomfortable. Not necessarily better, but perhaps little less alone. 2 weeks later, the Augustine story appeared. The headline ran, "From Sabotage to Stardom. How one artist used familial treachery to drive his career." I reread it 3 times. Augustine had caught everything. My voice, narrative, struggle, and resolve. He didn't make it theatrical or phony, he just expressed the truth. I demonstrated how I had made a career despite the odds. The article went viral quickly, shared thousands of times. My social media erupted. People commented on how motivating it was, how it linked to their own difficult family circumstances, and how they appreciated me for not giving up. Within 48 hours, my album pre-orders increased by 280%. My label is named Ecstatic. They wanted to push the release date up 2 weeks to capitalize on all of the interest, which meant I had to be ready for promotion sooner than intended, with extra interviews, material, and everything. Sophie was already working on it. She scheduled me for a huge morning program 2.5 weeks out, immediately after my 10-week vocal clearance session with Dr. Campbell. If he gave me permission to sing again, I could perform my single live on national television. The time was excellent. Scary, but wonderful. Then Jessica unleashed a lengthy rage on social media. Someone called me a liar. Said I made up the Juilliard tale for attention, that our family had always supported my music career, that I was distorting facts to make myself appear like a victim, and that she had never ruined anything. The post was frantic, furious, and full of falsehoods that anybody who knew us could see through, yet she still posted it, most likely in an attempt to control the narrative and make herself appear better. It backfired instantly. Within 3 hours, others began submitting older screenshots. One showed Jessica commenting on my YouTube account 4 years ago, claiming that my covers were amateurish and humiliating. Another came from her Facebook where she advised someone that I was wasting my time with music and should get a real job. A guy who went to high school with us said that he remembers Jessica bragging about having me grounded before my Juilliard audition. She said she joked about it at a party the same week. More folks piled on. A female in Jessica's dentistry school program told her that Jessica stole her study papers and passed them off as her own. Someone from Jessica's MBA program blogged about her putting a classmate under the bus during a group assignment to make herself seem good. The receipts kept flowing. Screenshots, photographs, and comprehensive narratives with dates and witnesses. Every hour provided further proof that Jessica was precisely who I claimed she was. Her desperation post attempting to label me a liar simply prompted people to research deeper into her background. The comments on her original post were savage. People were calling her out for lying, pointing out the discrepancies, and questioning why she never mentioned supporting my music career if she was such a wonderful sister. Her attempt to control the story failed entirely. By nightfall, someone had gathered all of the evidence into a Twitter thread that became viral on its own. The thread included screenshots of Jessica's disparaging remarks about my music, testimonies from others who knew about the Juilliard sabotage, and accounts from her students about her entitled conduct. It was shared thousands of times. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed with a voicemail notice. Mom's voice came across the speaker, both furious and trembling. She insisted that I make a public statement protecting Jessica immediately. They said I was ripping the family apart and damaging Jessica's reputation. That I needed to inform everyone that I made everything up, exaggerated, or misinterpreted what happened. She stated the media circus had to end, and it was my obligation to repair it. I erased the voicemail without answering. Ethan sat across from me at my kitchen table, his laptop open. We spent the next 2 hours planning my album's advertising program. He organized shorter interview sessions, allowed for extra rest time between obligations, and ensured that nothing would damage my voice before I was totally cured. We designed stuff that I could make without singing. Behind-the-scenes footage, Q&A sessions, and photo shoots for the album artwork. Ethan recognized my limitations and worked around them rather than forcing me to accomplish more than I could bear. 3 days later, I met Finn at his studio for our first session. He asked me to practice light humming exercises, which felt unusual after weeks of solitude. We focused on breathing methods to relieve stress in my neck and shoulders. He attentively observed my posture and made little adjustments to assist my voice recuperate correctly. Finn mentioned that my discipline impressed him. Most vocalists pushed themselves too hard and too quickly, which hampered their recuperation. He assured me that my voice will recover stronger than before since I was learning right technique during the mending process. We started meeting 3 times each week. Each session developed upon the previous one. Gentle workouts with progressively increasing difficulty. Finn carefully watched everything and made adjustments based on how my throat felt each day. My 11-week appointment with Dr. Campbell occurred on a Tuesday morning. He inspected my voice cords with the scope and nodded while seeing the photos on his screen. They said the recovery looked great. There is no irritation or consequence. If everything remained this excellent at the 12-week point, he would allow me to resume singing with certain restrictions. Short performances only for the first month following approval. Nothing too demanding for my voice. I spent my days doing promotional activities that did not include singing. A photographer arrived to my house to shoot an album cover. We spent 6 hours trying out different clothes and lighting configurations. I created video material for social media. I discussed my creative process and the tales behind each song. Conducted written interviews for music websites and publications. The forced vocal rest helped me develop other aspects of my artistry. I learned how to talk about my music in new ways. My phone rang as I was editing images for Instagram. Dad's number appeared on the screen. I responded, and he sounded exhausted. He informed me that he confronted Mom about everything, including the Juilliard event and how she treated me throughout the years compared to Jessica. They said it didn't go well, and they could hardly speak now. But he eventually said what needed to be said, despite the fact that it sparked a massive argument. I thanked him for advocating for me. I then told him the truth. That one chat didn't reverse years of him allowing Mom and Jessica to harm me while remaining silent. That admiration was not synonymous with forgiveness. He replied he understood. I asked if we could have regular coffee sessions to gradually restore our friendship, focusing on solving things rather than just apologizing. I promised to try. The 10-week checkup arrived on Thursday morning. Dr. Campbell performed a comprehensive examination that lasted nearly an hour. He examined my voice cords from several angles, had me perform light vocal exercises while he monitored and reviewed all of Finn's progress reports. Then he grinned and told me my voice cords had recovered perfectly with no issues. He formally approved me to resume singing with modest increases in intensity over the next month. I could give brief performances but needed to avoid anything too taxing for the next 4 weeks. I began weeping right there in the doctor's office, not sad sobbing, but relief crying, the sort you can't stop because you've been holding your breath for 3 months hoping to hear those words. Ethan rose from his chair and hugged me as Dr. Campbell grinned and printed my clearance paperwork. My voice was coming back. I could sing again. Dr. Campbell advised me to take things slowly and provided me a list of limits for the following month. There will be no performances lasting more than 30 minutes, no yelling or shouting, lots of drink, and relaxation between sessions. I nodded and cleaned my face with the tissue he gave me. Ethan drove me directly to Finn's studio since I had already texted him the good news, and he wanted to start working with me right away. Finn had set aside his afternoon schedule specifically for this. He greeted us at the door with a huge grin and brought me into the practice area, where he had set up recording equipment in case my voice was good enough to record. Ethan sat on the couch against the wall while Finn and I stood by the piano. Finn began with the most moderate warm-up exercises, humming initially and then basic scales. My throat felt constricted from nerves, yet the sound came out clearly. Different than previously, but in a positive manner. Finn's eyes widened, and he motioned for me to continue. We progressed through increasingly difficult exercises, and my voice felt stronger with each one. The polyps that had been causing tension for years were removed during surgery. The right method I learned upon rehabilitation improved my control. My tone was crisper and fuller than it had been before to surgery. Finn filmed everything and played it back to me. I could scarcely recognize my own voice. It sounded professional and polished, like the voice of someone who had already made it. Ethan was smiling from the couch, and Finn kept repeating he couldn't believe how fantastic I sounded after only receiving clearance. We spent 2 hours in the studio, and by the end, I was singing actual songs, although short ones with careful breath control, but real songs with words and passion. Finn captured film of me performing, and the footage looked incredible. Genuine, raw, and authentic. Sophie called as we were watching the recording, so I placed her on speaker. She intended to upload the video right away with a comment about perseverance and healing. I agreed and emailed her the file. She had it up within 20 minutes. The response was swift and tremendous. Hundreds of comments poured in inside the first hour. Thousands of likes and shares. People said they were sobbing while seeing me sing again. Other artists responded with encouragement and congratulations. Fans are sharing their own experiences of overcoming adversities. By that evening, the video had received 100,000 views. Finn has booked 3 further sessions with me over the next week to help me increase strength safely. The morning show performance was in 5 days, and we wanted to make sure I was prepared. Every day I rehearsed my single, with Finn keeping a tight eye to ensure I wasn't pushing myself too hard. He made little adjustments to my technique that made a significant impact, showed me how to properly support my breath, and reduce stress in my jaw. My voice felt powerful, and I was more delighted than afraid to sing on national television. This was the moment I'd been striving toward for the past 12 weeks. Dad phoned 4 days before the show. He sounded uneasy, and I knew right once something was wrong. He informed me Jessica had requested him to deliver a message. She wanted to apologize and speak. I remained quiet and let him continue. He claimed he told Jessica she needed to undertake real self-reflection about her actions and that she couldn't simply apologize since the public response was damaging her reputation and job. He claimed he wasn't sure whether her willingness to communicate was real or intentional. I thanked Dad for being honest with me. Then I told him I wasn't ready to talk to Jessica and may never be. Some relationships cannot be mended, no matter how much someone apologizes. That I was concentrating on creating the life and profession I want rather than repairing a family dynamic that had been strained long before the graduation celebration. Dad said that he understood and was proud of me for setting boundaries. We spent another hour discussing my impending performance and CD release. He wanted to watch the morning program, and I said yes. I woke up around 5 a.m. on the day of the concert. I conducted my vocal warm-ups in the shower. Ethan picked me up at 6 a.m. We drove to the studio. Sophie greeted us with my clothing and makeup artist. The green room was modest but pleasant, and I spent an hour getting dressed and preparing my talking points for the interview. When we met backstage, the host was nice and told me how much she enjoyed my story. They said it would inspire a large number of individuals. I walked into the scene at 8:30 a.m. The studio audience applauded. The interview lasted 6 minutes, and I discussed the surgery recuperation and rediscovering my voice, both physically and metaphorically. Then I played my single live with a little band backing me up. My voice was loud and clear and I struck each note precisely. The audience gave me a standing ovation. The performance footage was made available online shortly after the program concluded. It became viral within hours. 5 million views in 24 hours. Comments are streaming in from all across the world. Music blogs and entertainment websites are publishing pieces on my reappearance. My phone didn't stop vibrating all day. 2 days later, my record was out. I spent the release day conducting radio interviews and social media advertising. Ethan zealously tracked sales figures and texted me regular updates. By the conclusion of the first week, the album had debuted at number 3 in the rankings. My label has not seen such strong first-week sales from a new artist in years. The combination of my tale, the quality of the music, and the attention had resulted in the perfect launch. My label hosted a modest celebration in their office, and everyone started thanking me. Ethan and I went to my favorite restaurant that night to celebrate. Only the two of us at a quiet corner booth. He ordered champagne and told me he was happy of how I handled the conflict and recovery. Sitting there, I recognized that standing up to my family had been both scary and vital. It unlocked doors I didn't realize were possible. They gave me permission to cease tolerating their abuse and begin developing something better. 6 months have passed. I was on a nationwide tour, performing in locations I had previously only imagined. Shows in big cities were completely sold out. Fans are singing along to every word. My voice was stronger than ever, and I'd developed a career on my own terms, free of family backing or approval. Dad and I would meet for coffee every couple weeks and our relationship was gradually improving. He'd started standing up to Mom and establishing his own boundaries. But I'd accepted that Mom and Jessica might never be a part of my life again, and I was quite fine with it. Alex and Finn and Sophie, as well as the people who backed my music, had become like family to me. People who embraced my accomplishment, rather than resented it. Who turned up when I needed them. Who believed in me even when I doubted myself. That was sufficient.